How would you react if the very person you hoped to avoid stumbled upon you in a compromising moment? The residence was serene, extremely silent, the sort of silence that seems to constrict your ears, rendering each breath as if you're relinquishing something precious. My husband, Mark, was away on yet another business trip. It's his third one this month. The justifications remained the same. Building connections is essential in real estate. Darling, you're aware of that. Yet truthfully, we ceased to hold significance for one another quite some time back. I repeatedly assured myself that I was fine with it, that I had grown accustomed to solitude. Yet that evening, the sense of emptiness lingered within me, more persistent than before. The wine was beneficial. After 2 glasses, my frustration seemed to diminish. However, after the 3rd glass, I became somewhat audacious. I was unaware of his approach. The television flickered softly, an old romantic comedy unfolding in the background, merely a sound to break the stillness. I wasn't even focused. My thoughts drifted to the times when Mark used to gaze at me as he now does with closing deals. Suddenly, a creak echoed from the staircase. My breath was taken away. The house was meant to be vacant, yet he was present. My stepson, returning from college for the weekend, stood motionless in the doorway. His dark eyes were wide with shock as they locked onto mine, and I felt a jolt of horror as the realization hit me that he had witnessed it all. The wine glass fell from my grasp and shattered on the ground. Yet the noise hardly registered, for, in that fleeting moment of quiet, something far more perilous than embarrassment flowed between us, an unspoken connection. In that instant, I realized everything had changed forever. This is not how it was meant to unfold. To go, Jason wasn't even really my son. Mark brought him into our lives when he was 12. In those early years, I tried to be a mother to him, but grief and his teenage rebellion put up walls between us. By the time he headed off to college, we were pretty much just polite strangers, living together. But now, as he stood there with an unreadable look on his face, I could feel something change. Not desire, it was more complicated than that. It was power. The way his eyes flickered and how he swallowed hard showed he was just as shaken as I was. Yet beneath the surprise, there lurked something far more perilous. At that moment, we remained silent. He averted his gaze, first muttering something about leaving his phone charger behind. Poor justification. We both grasped the reality. He had captured me in a moment I could never erase. I ought to have simply let it go. Yet I refrained for later that evening. As I lay in bed gazing at the ceiling with my heart still pounding, I heard it. A gentle tap on my door. I might have feigned sleep. I was able to. I instructed him to go. Yet, I refrained from opening the door. In the faint glow of the hallway, I noticed a flicker in Jason's eyes that mirrored my own solitude. That was the moment I stumbled for the first time. This is the point where it all begins. What transpired next was far more than a mere fling. A tumultuous battle of guilt, obsession, and unforeseen consequences unfolded before me. By the moment I realized how far I had fallen, it was already too late. During those tranquil early morning hours, I remind myself of the weight of my actions as it settles in. It's weighing down on me to the point where I can barely catch my breath. But perhaps she was always a part of me, the one capable of betrayal. Maybe she was simply biding her time to reveal herself. Allow me to begin at the beginning. My name is Evelyn Carter, or at least it was before I took on the name Evelyn Hartley. I changed my name upon marrying. Like many other things I relinquished without even recognizing their significance, I was 34 when I crossed paths with Mark, a divorced real estate agent with an irresistible smile and a child he barely knew. Ways to embrace parenthood. At that time I felt quite honored by his interest. He exuded success and confidence, qualities my ex completely lacked. When he introduced me to Jason, a brooding 12-year-old with his mother's eyes, I thought, this is my chance at the family I've always dreamed of. It seems so innocent now, doesn't it? The initial indications of trouble appeared earlier than I had anticipated. Mark was never unkind, merely perpetually absent. His business trips continued to extend, and his justifications accumulated. You understand, right, Evie? This agreement has the potential to secure our future, yet the life we were crafting each month seemed to drain away. Then came Jason. I genuinely put in the effort, I promise. I prepared his lunches, attended his soccer matches, endured the slamming of doors and his cries of, "You're not my mum," but grief is relentless. It disregards good intentions. By the time he left for college, we had established a careful distance. He reached out to Mark instead of me. He returned home for the holidays. Yet our conversations were minimal. I kept convincing myself it didn't sting. Truthfully, I was just trying to cope. That evening when Jason spotted me, he wasn't even on my mind. I wasn't really focused on anything at all. Not at all. Just the wine, the solitude and the reality that Mark's side of the bed had remained untouched for 6 nights. I didn't anticipate what unfolded. But when Jason knocked on my door later that evening, his voice taut with an unidentifiable tension, I really should have turned him away. Instead, I welcomed him in, not in a physical sense, not at that moment, but into a far more complicated scenario. "We need to discuss what transpired." His words lingered in the atmosphere laden with significance. I could have dismissed it as if I didn't understand, could have pretended it was insignificant. But the way he was gazing at me, he was both anxious and resolute when he expressed that he wouldn't allow me. So I made the worst choice. I spoke the truth. "I regret that you had to witness that." I noticed his jaw tense. "You don't need to apologize." Then he murmured, "I understand why you'd feel isolated." That was the first moment it struck me that he had outgrown his childhood, and that realization unsettled me. What followed wasn't immediate. It unfolded through a series of small, seemingly innocent moments, like those lingering gazes in the kitchen, unintentional brushes when we passed the salt, and late-night conversations where we pretended to be just 2 ordinary individuals, not stepmother and stepson. With every step we took, we edged closer to a perilous boundary. Each one seemed more justifiable than the previous. Then one evening he said, "You deserve better than him." In that moment of vulnerability, I allowed myself to believe him. I longed for his attention and silenced the voice within me, warning, "This will destroy you." I deceived myself into thinking I wasn't doing anything wrong, but fate has a way of balancing the scales. Our reality confronted us sooner than we anticipated. I discovered that through experience, everything began with a message. "He is returning home ahead of schedule." Only 3 words that sent shivers through me. Mark was not expected to return for another 2 days. Yet there it was. His message illuminated my phone, nonchalant, as if it were nothing significant. "The meeting has concluded. I should be home by 9. My eyes were fixed on the screen, adrenaline coursing through me. This wasn't part of our plans. I kept reassuring myself that it simply occurred. Another evening filled with excessive wine, yet the justifications seemed hollow. Now Jason rose to a sitting position. What seems to be the issue? I couldn't find the words. I simply passed him the phone. His demeanor changed. It wasn't remorse, not yet. Just a calculation. "We've got 6 hours, he stated, as if that would alter anything. We hurried to tidy up, as if we were guilty, washed the sheets, opened the windows, sprayed air freshener, as if it could erase our actions. Jason dressed quickly, his movements tight. He doesn't know. I wanted to believe in him. But when he reached for me one last time, I recoiled. There was something in his gaze that had hardened. Too late for regrets. Evelyn. That's when I understood. I was no longer in control. Mark's key turned in the lock at 8:47 p.m. I found myself in the kitchen stirring a pot of soup that I had hardly begun. "Quite sad, isn't it?" "Smells good," he remarked, setting his suitcase down by the stairs. I managed a smile. "Thought you'd be hungry." And he pressed a kiss to my cheek. His lips felt so parched, familiar, For a moment, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Just then, Jason appeared at the bottom of the stairs. "I didn't realize you were back," he remarked, gripping the banister. Mark beamed and gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "Surprise. Have you two been spending time together?" A complex inquiry. Jason remained completely unfazed, assisting Evelyn in tidying up the garage, an untruth so smooth it sent chills down my spine. It was purchased by Mark. What would prevent him from doing so? That evening, as we lay in bed, Mark extended his hand toward me. I felt a surge of tension. Feeling weary, I whispered softly. With a heavy sigh, he averted his gaze. "You seem to be feeling quite fatigued these days." The allegation hung heavily in the atmosphere. I gazed up at the ceiling, Jason's words reverberating in my mind. Regrets have come and gone. The following week was nothing short of excruciating. Each look exchanged between Jason and me carried a weight of unspoken words, pure caress. We were scorched. The events that transpired remained unspoken. There was no necessity for words. The silence held a deeper weight. We craved the thrill once more. It unfolded in the laundry room. Jason cornered me as I folded towels, his voice a hushed whisper. "You can't keep pretending I'm not. You look at me like you're starving," he interrupted. He sensed it too. My hand trembled. "We need to stop." He edged closer. "Do you really want to?" And oh, how I didn't want to deny it. Mark began to watch us closely. Not overtly, but I noticed the way he lingered on me when Jason chuckled at my jokes, how we lingered outside the rooms we occupied. He sensed something was amiss, yet he couldn't quite identify it. This was merely the beginning, for secrets, such as ours, carry a cost, and that cost was looming. I repeated that notion to myself incessantly in the weeks that ensued, hoping that by acknowledging it, I could absolve myself. But guilt doesn't operate that way. It accumulates, and ours was poised to return and sting us. Mark began working from home unexpectedly, with no prior discussion, just a nonchalant remark over coffee one morning. "Consider that I'll be occupied with meetings throughout the week. Your absence leaves a void where your smile once was." His smile seemed to lack warmth, not quite illuminating his eyes. Jason paused, toast halfway to his mouth. Our gazes locked for a fleeting instant, yet it was sufficient, just enough for Mark's fork to clatter onto his plate. There was an unsettling feeling in the air. The air was thick with tension. I've just scorched my tongue. Jason effortlessly fabricated a story while extending his hand toward the orange juice. "It would be considerate to let me know before you decide to drop by." "Dad." Only joking, attempting to shift the topic. Mark chuckled, yet his hold on the coffee mug remained firm. A system was devised by us. Negative lingering in vacant spaces, no messages unless absolutely essential, no contact, not even inadvertently. We were extremely cautious, yet some things got past us. I neglected to erase the messages just once, just for a brief moment, but that was sufficient. Mark snatched my phone when it vibrated during dinner. Jason was inquiring if we needed anything from the store. Just an ordinary message, except Jason was seated right across from us. His phone remained silent. Mark's expression didn't shift when he set my phone down. Strange. Must be some sort of delay. That evening, I stumbled upon my charger, unplugged, leaving my phone lifeless. It felt like a warning. Jason had let his guard down. A crumpled receipt slipped from his jeans while I was doing laundry. One from Belmont Room 214. Last Tuesday, the same day Mark was in Chicago, when I had told Jason we couldn't meet at the house, I incinerated the receipt in the kitchen sink, watching it dissolve into ash. When I turned back, Mark was in the doorway. "Smells like you're burning dinner again," he quipped, and it struck me hard. Then he mentioned the name Lindsay. Merely engaging in a light conversation while enjoying some scotch, a new junior associate has joined his firm. Incredibly sharp, it completely brings back memories of our first encounter. I almost sputtered my wine everywhere. Jason cast a glance in my direction, as if he were inquiring silently. Yet Mark continued swirling his drink with abandon. She has been assisting me with the Henderson deal, spending many late hours at work. The silence between us was palpable. I'm offering you an opportunity to reconsider. Just take it. 2 days later, Jason confronted me in the garage. We need to talk about Lindsay, I retorted sharply. There's nothing to talk about, as I busied myself with the garden tools. It was never utilized. He's merely putting you to the test. Jason seized my wrist. If you withdraw at this point, he'll definitely realize I successfully liberated myself, or perhaps he's truly being unfaithful. Those words resonated with sheer hypocrisy. Jason's smile turned wicked. Thus, we are on equal footing. I began to observe things. The GPS in my car has been reset. The home security camera was directed in another direction. Whenever I entered the room, Mark's laptop would inexplicably shut down. We found ourselves pursued within the very walls we called home. The journey began with the rain. A tempest arises unexpectedly. Jason returned home drenched, and I offered him A towel lay in the hallway, an unexpected sight. We froze our eyes, drawn to a shadow flickering at the top of the stairs. Mark remained silent, which was the most unsettling part. He stood there, suitcase in hand, as if we were mere equations. He had finally solved. How long? 3 simple words that turned my reality on its head. Jason stepped protectively in front of me. Dad, not you. Mark's voice cut through the air, sharp and frigid. In that moment, I faced a choice to lie and weave excuses, or to confront the truth and accept the consequences. This was certainly not how things were meant to unfold. It's over. Yet, truthfully, it was destined to conclude this way. Mark didn't hurl anything, didn't bang any doors, didn't even elevate his voice. The silence was even more excruciating. He merely stood there, at the top of the stairs, clutching the suitcase handle so tightly that the leather creaked. His wedding ring shimmered in the hallway light, a stark reminder of all we had just destroyed. Jason took a step back. I remained completely still. Mark descended slowly, each step intentional. I asked you a question, Evelyn. My mouth went dry. It's not about what you don't. One word cutting through the silence. Please provide me with an answer. Jason made another attempt. Father, may we have a conversation regarding this matter? You no longer have the privilege to refer to me in that way. Mark didn't so much as look in his direction. His eyes were locked onto mine. Incredible. It has been quite a while, 3 months, a sudden recoil. That is all he provided to me. He then shifted his gaze to Jason. Leave. Jason didn't merely exit the house. He snatched his car keys and vanished into the darkness. Farewell is not an option. No, I apologize. Only the piercing sound of tires skidding on slick pavement. At last, Mark turned his gaze toward me, truly gazed upon me. Was it payback? The inquiry took me by surprise. What is it, Lindsay? He chuckled. A hollow, broken sound. She's not real. I just invented her to see if you'd care. The trap. I stepped right into. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, like strangers now. Mark spoke first. I could tell something was up for weeks. The way you both would freeze when I walked into a room. He rubbed his temples, but my own son. Jesus, Evelyn, I had no excuse. It wasn't planned, I whispered. That makes it worse. He shot up. You want to know the kicker? I believed you were involved with Dave from accounting. I had our tech guy keeping an eye on your emails. A bitter laugh escaped me. I never thought about him. The grandfather clock ticked ominously in the hall. He's not welcome here anymore. I looked up, shocked. You'd really cut off your own son. You'd choose him over your husband. Mark shot back. The silence hung heavy between us. Then he dropped the bomb. I want you out by morning. Packed up in a day. 20 years of marriage boiled down to 2 suitcases. Mark stood in the doorway. Arms crossed. You'll hear from my lawyer. "Mark, just stop." He turned away. The worst part, I might have been able to forgive him for cheating, but this is far worse. It's as if he has erased me entirely. The front door clicked shut behind me at 5:47 a.m. I called Jason, and he answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" I demanded. "At Motel 95. Did you tell him it was my fault?" The question struck me hard. Does it even matter? "Yeah," he shot back, "because I'm not taking the blame for this all by myself." The call ended before I could respond. I sat in my car outside a Starbucks, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me felt like a complete stranger. I lost my husband, my home, and my self-respect. And for what? A fleeting thrill from someone who's already moved on. The notification appeared at noon. A Facebook update. Jason tagged in a photo with a blonde at a beach bar. Caption: "Fresh start." No mention of me, no acknowledgement of the life we shattered. Just moving forward. I hurled my phone against the hotel wall. I realized this 6 weeks after I left Mark's place, when the divorce papers arrived alongside something far more devastating, a positive pregnancy test. The clinic was filled with that antiseptic scent, tinged with a whisper of false hope. The doctor glanced at my chart and stated, "Based on your last cycle, you're about 8 weeks along." The weight of the news settled heavily on me. 8 weeks. I reached out to Jason 13 times over the span of 3 days before he finally answered on the 14th. "Damn, Evelyn. I'm at a tailgate." I struggled to say, "I'm pregnant." A heavy silence followed. Then I heard footsteps. A door slam, and his voice turned serious. "You sure it's mine?" That question struck me harder than I anticipated. Honestly, there's no way to rationalize this. Where is Mark? A lengthy silence enveloped the moment, and ultimately I knew I had to release it. I surveyed my surroundings. The following day, Mark's attorney dispatched an official notification. He was contesting our prenup due to claims of supposed marital misconduct. He aimed to leave me destitute. I arrived at his office unexpectedly. "Would you truly send me out onto the street?" My voice cracked. Mark hardly glanced away from his desk. We each made our own decisions. I forcefully placed the ultrasound photo on the table. "You overlooked me for years. You're not." His fist struck the desk with force. "Do not place this responsibility on me." For the very first time, I truly perceived it. Raw pain lurked beneath his anger. I walked away without another word. It all began with a Reddit thread. "Step, Mum. 40 is pregnant with me." 21. Screenshots leaked to Twitter, then TikTok. My face pulled from Mark's Facebook blurry, yet still recognizable. Jason's face was clearer. I switched off my phone and lost my lunch in the motel sink. 2 days later, my sister appeared unexpectedly, her minivan idling outside room 217. "You're coming home," Rachel said, seizing my suitcase. "I can't, Mum knows." Her gaze could have melted metal. She still wants to help. God only knows why I found myself in tears on I-95, witnessing my past slip away in the rearview mirror. My childhood home carried that familiar scent of lemon cleaner, intertwined with disappointment. Mum poured tea as if we were engaged in a grave discussion about job loss, rather than navigating a scandal. "You'll stay through the pregnancy," she stated with an icy calm. "Then we'll adopt." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Who'd want that baby?" The clock continued its relentless ticking. Mum placed her hand over mine. "We'll say it's Mark's. Merely a facade for the error. It's what our family does." Jason slurred into the phone at 3 a.m. "They kicked me out," he mumbled, sounding either drunk or something else entirely. "My life is in disarray because of you." I noticed the moonlight stripe on the nursery wallpaper. "You were involved," I whispered. "You initiated it." He lost control on his side. I was merely a child. The truth struck us hard. He hung up first. The baby came early. A girl with Jason's nose, I only held her once. The social worker was ready to finalize the paperwork. Still chose adoption. Outside reporters lingered by the hospital exit. He nodded. 5 years later, Mark remarried a pediatric nurse. They have twins. Jason is employed on oil rigs. Texas. Multiple deaths. A baby closed. Adoption. No updates. I work nights at a 24-hour diner near my mum's place. Occasionally customers recognize me, but most pretend they don't. This wasn't a love story. It served as a warning about hunger, about consequences, and the terrible cost of confusing loneliness with love. The narrative starkly illustrates the fallout of unchecked desire, revealing how loneliness can distort perception and render even the most irrational actions justifiable. Ultimately, it dismantles every shred of trust, fraying family bonds and eroding self-worth. It illustrates the peril of believing that emotional voids can be filled with physical or forbidden connections, particularly when such relationships exploit power dynamics and familial ties. These types of connections are precarious, crumbling under the weight of guilt, shame, and societal scrutiny. The narrative underscores that betrayal is not merely a singular act. It reverberates, inflicting pain on all those touched by it. It impacts all parties, from partners to children to the wider family, creating enduring wounds that linger well beyond the fleeting thrill of defiance. It starkly highlights the inconsistencies in our justifications. The protagonist begins with the belief that she is seizing control in response to feeling neglected, only to come to the realization that she has caused the chaos herself. It illustrates that adopting a victim mentality is frequently just a feeble rationale to evade accountability. The narrative dismantles the fallacy of that perception. The narrative explores the transformation of a stepson from an ally to a resentful accuser, illustrating the familiar dynamics of blame and victimhood. It compels readers to confront the harsh reality that certain errors are irreparable, leaving behind enduring scars on marriage reputation and motherhood. Each consequence strikes with increasing intensity. This is the essence of the tale. Rejects superficial forgiveness, illustrating that the protagonist's punishment extends beyond societal judgment. It involves a perpetual struggle with her own guilt, a relentless cycle of contemplating what if that neither time nor distance can erase. It examines the contemporary fixation on scandals as a form of entertainment, illustrating how online audiences engage in moral outrage without much reflection. It underscores that public shaming often reveals more about the shamer's desire for self-affirmation than it does about the individual's errors. Ultimately, it stands as a stark reminder of the price of selfishness, illustrating how the pursuit of fleeting approval, be it through infidelity, an unexpected pregnancy, or the desire for affection, can devastate futures, transforming love into a mere transaction and intimacy into a tool for harm. Above all, it imparts the lesson that not all wounds mend, not every obligation can be fulfilled, and certain decisions can expel us from the lives we once assumed would always be ours, leaving us with nothing but the painful clarity of hindsight amid the turmoil.